Welcome to Rotten Taste, where we take a look at movies that are considered rotten on Rotten Tomatoes and tell you what we think of them. And today, we are looking at the 2024 film Roadhouse, um, starring Jake
Sure
Gyllenhaal.
are.
So there's two
Hmm.
reasons we're doing this film. One, one of our best Rotten Taste episodes was the original Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, which I know we'll probably get into, obviously, the differences. And it was we hit like 1,000 views. If you want to check out the original, the link's in the description. The
Yes.
second is, yeah, this movie is only 60%. No, it's not officially rotten, but it's 1% away. So, because of those two things, we have to talk about this.
Oh yeah.
And man, is there going to be a bit to unpack on this.
Oh
So,
God.
Soto, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, when we
Yeah.
were talking the original Roadhouse, the remake was just being talked about and just being
Hmm.
starting filming.
Yep.
So before we get into the film, what was your reaction when you heard that they were doing a remake to Roadhouse? What did you honestly think at first?
How unnecessary it was. I don't know exactly what else to feel. I mean, Roadhouse is its own special kind of strange ass movie, as we've covered before. But I just did not understand why there was a need to remake it. And I know we'll get into the choices that were made a little bit later in the episode. But yeah, unnecessary, completely unnecessary. Yeah, no. Those are my first thoughts.
Yeah, and I kind of agree. And when they started announcing like Conor McGregor was in this, and I'm just like, okay, how's this all gonna work? And they're showing
Oh God.
pictures of Jake Gyllenhaal, and the original Roadhouse. There was a special as crazy as the original was. I mean, I think we
And
dubbed
it's
it
not
bar fights in the
perfect, by
movie.
the way.
No,
It's
it's
not,
not
this is not a perfect film. I want to be very clear about that. Although it will seem that way
compared to this one.
the more that we talk about this, it will come across that way, but I want to be very clear that the original Roadhouse is by no means a perfect movie,
So
hence its taste score.
So they did update it, and I will say like the original Patrick Swayze had a little charm to him. And again, maybe it's
Of
because it's
course he
80s, it's a
did.
little different. It was,
He's
you
Patrick
know,
Swayze.
so Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously they updated. Times are a little bit different. The premise is somewhat the same because I felt like in the original they were trying to fix the bar, give it a better image. They hired Jake Gyllenhaal, who's a former UFC fighter, to just basically clean up the bar. Anytime there's a fight, kick him out. So he didn't seem to be like making the bar better. They were just like protect the
No.
bar, and I'm like, I don't go to dangerous bars, so do we usually just go out for a drink? I've never heard of this many bar fights ever happening in one bar. Now I don't know the area. Maybe this happens all the time, and I just don't know about it. I am unaware, but it just seemed like the most outrageous bar fights scenes just happen in this movie.
Well,
Oh
this is
my.
this is my first problem with this like remake. The first major issue I had was that Patrick Swayze was a professional at like, or whatever his fucking character's name was. I don't even remember. His name was just Roadhouse in the
Dalton, I
original
believe.
Roadhouse. Dalton, thank you. Uh, Dalton Roadhouse. Um, in the original one, he was like an expert at like turning businesses around and running like a front of house security team, detail, whatever, bouncer group. He was an expert at that, right? He had the whole thing about be nice. He made
Correct.
everybody wear their polo shirts and everything like that.
Yep.
So it was like this air of professionalism. And he comes across it. It's like, yeah, okay. Does he know karate and other techniques that may kill people? Sure, but you just felt like, okay, yeah, here's an expert coming into the field, and he's going to turn this bar around. With this movie, it's like Jake Gyllenhaal is some random guy or a UFC fighter who's really good. I think what he ends up, spoiler alert, like killing like some guy in the ring, um, from what I remember, and
Yes.
that gives him the qualifications to have the nuance to run like a bouncer place, like in a place where it's a lot of bar fights. I mean, because Patrick Swayze knew what he was getting into. He's like, there's going to be a lot of bar fights. I've got to make sure I turn the image around. Jake Gyllenhaal did not have any sort of like, he just showed up for work one day.
Well, yes and no. I mean, correct. He just showed up to basically scam some money, and the
Sure.
woman that owns the bar, Frankie, she was going there to look at someone else for the job, basically another fighter. And Jake Gyllenhaal kind of shows up, and he's gonna fight this guy, and obviously he
Yes.
quits because yes, Dalton in this movie kind of killed someone, and then kind of he did kill someone in the UFC
He
ring because
totally
he
did.
just could not stop. Like the Hulk, he's like, you don't want to see me when I get angry, kind of thing. He's talking, but and then she sees the fact that people fear him, and then yeah, goes to meet him in the whatever parking lot. He gets stabbed. He just has a fucking knife standing out, and he's like, oh yeah, no
Yeah.
big deal. Which kind of a callback to the original one. Oh yeah, but no qualifications. He doesn't know how to change a bar around. He
No.
just basically beats people up for a living. But yes,
Yep.
he obviously takes the job and goes down to the Florida Keys or wherever the frig it is, and kind
Yeah,
of
it
checks
is.
it
Yeah.
out where this is just again bar fights the movie for the first half of this movie and over the top bar fights in the movie. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. The
but
violence I did appreciate because that does harken back to the original one. Uh, and I will say I kept waiting for the Sam Elliott character to show up because I know we discussed, at length his demise in the
yeah,
previous movie. But there was no Sam Elliott type character, man. And I was
no
super
wise
bummed
friend,
about
no.
that.
No, I mean there was some disappointments, and the love interest was obviously a little bit different of how they met. So his first night there, obviously, the local biker gang being routed and beats them all out in the parking lot, 4 against 1, and he's asking the boss, "How far is the hospital?" And they're like, "What are you
Which
talking
I
about?"
thought was
Just
funny.
it was a fun little moment because basically he's letting them know we're gonna kick their ass. I just want to make sure they're okay when they're done. And then
There-
he just goes around, he smacks them at first, which is hilarious to me. Not like a close fist,
yes.
he just literally smacks them. And then, yeah, basically beats the shit out of them. None of them have a ride. And then there's that one scene where he's driving all 4 of them to the hospital, and he's like bump, and they're like, oh. And he's there, concussion. So this movie definitely has its moments. Don't get me wrong. And
Yeah,
its
for sure. It had
absurdity
little
is
moments here and there. Yeah.
so I have to ask a question, and
Yeah.
when you saw Jake Gyllenhaal as
hmm
the star of this, and you see him, with his unbuttoned shirt, just
Yeah.
I just couldn't buy it. I don't know what your thoughts were, but I just could not buy him in this
No.
leading kick-ass role. I'm not saying he's a strong guy, but just he never felt like the original Patrick Swayze Dalton to me, and I think that's what hindered it a little bit.
It's like Patrick Swayze's presence is just huge in the original Roadhouse. I think obviously that's what makes Roadhouse Roadhouse is that Patrick Swayze's in it. He's not necessarily like a tough guy. He's just got like that great sort of like vibe that like he's a professional, but he's gonna kick your ass. And of course, obviously the original Roadhouse derails into the third act into some ridiculous over the top action bullshit. And there are some scenes of Patrick Swayze shirtless and him just doing Tai Chi and shit. But um, Jake Gyllenhaal, I have no problems with Jake Gyllenhaal, but I don't buy him as this kind of character. Again, there were those kind of funny moments where he was just being quiet and just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna take." He's like kind of like the reluctant like fighter and stuff like that. I will say this about this Roadhouse, and I want you to kind of see what you feel about this, right? I think that this version of Roadhouse, as a movie, like structurally and story wise and everything like that, is a quote unquote better made movie than Roadhouse is. I think that it makes more
Oh,
sense and I
agreed.
think that the action makes more sense, but it doesn't make it better than the original movie. It actually makes it somewhat slightly more boring and vanilla than the original ridiculousness, if that makes any sense.
No, agreed, and that's gonna be kind of my next point. Was yeah, I always consider both Roadhouses. There's two halves: the
hmm
introduction of Dalton, and him kind of cleaning up the bar in their own way, and
Which I
then when you
love.
realize the real bad guy behind everything that wants the building, the bar for whatever
Yeah.
reasons. Both kind of different reasons. So in
hmm
this one, once this biker gang who has come a couple times before you kind of get introduced to the real villain and Conor McGregor, there's that one scene where he's just trying to get rid of Dalton, and Dalton's like, "What is it with your problem with me?" And the guy tells him it's the bar. And then the most absurd thing in the movie. So yeah, Dalton stays at a boathouse that Frankie's like, hey, you want to stay there? Yep. You just be careful of the crocodiles. It's an ongoing fucking gag. The first half, be careful of the
Yes.
crocodiles. You're like, okay, okay, and then this leader of the biker gang and him get into a fight at his boathouse, and all of a sudden this fucking
Boathouse.
huge crocodile comes out of nowhere, which they kind of just tell us all movie. You just don't think it's gonna happen. Starts eating the fucking bad guy.
Yeah.
And then it's just like,
Yep.
where did this come from?
Yeah.
They're just like crocodiles hide their food. Kind of convenient that, like Dalton had no idea. He thought it was kind of a running joke. And yes, I'm not talking about a basic sized crocodile, which is still
Yeah.
scary as shit. I'm
Oh,
talking
of
about like
course.
Jaws. That just comes
Yeah.
out like in a horror movie, like, and never spoken about again. Like he still stays at the boathouse with this fucking crocodile out there. I'm like, no, no, I
Literally the
am
scene of a
out.
crime. Yeah, literally the scene of a crime, and he's like, "I'm gonna hang out here," and that's, I mean, yeah, like ridiculous aspects for sure, in this one compared to the other one, 100%. I mean, this one is just, I mean, Conor McGregor's whole character is a cartoon, and there was no character really like that in the last one, not as like pronounced as Conor McGregor, pretty much at all, because Conor McGregor is just like he's just like a running gag in the movie, right?
Kind of. He's just he's got this presence because there was a guy, kind of the one that Patrick Swayze kills, who
Yeah,
I mean,
rips
for
his throat
different
out.
reasons, I would put it in there, like kind of similar, just different reasons. Because yeah, Conor McGregor, and I forget his character's name, gets called by this guy's father, who's in jail, and basically is like, I need you to do me a favor. And then I kind of want to know this relationship a little bit. Like Conor McGregor just all of a sudden just up and leaves. I think he's in Italy at the time. He's like, yep, I'll go
Yes.
there. And for no reason, just because this guy told him so. And he just keeps, he's like the Terminator. No matter what the
Yeah.
fuck happens, he's just coming and he wants to beat the shit out of Dalton, all because this guy in jail just told him to. There's no exposition. There's nothing. He's just like, all right,
No.
let's do it. I mean, I will be honest. Yes, I think because it's running gag, I just loved it. I'm not a Conor McGregor fan, but a lot of this is just so stupidly over the top. I just enjoyed it. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go with these scenes. Whatever. Stab. He's just breaking things. Yeah, no,
I didn't
he's just a
I didn't hate his
one-dimensional
role.
character, but
I didn't
it's
hate it.
pretty.
He made me laugh.
He
Like
did.
again, there were like I don't hate this movie. I mean, I don't hate the original Roadhouse either. I don't think this movie is bad. I mean, there are parts that like made it watchable, but there are some really, really dumb parts. And overall, it's just, obviously it's a dumb movie. But how did Conor McGregor not die?
I don't know, because spoiler
He ended
alert,
up being alive
at the very end, after being stabbed 8 and 9 times, or every
in major arteries.
I don't know. I was just, again, maybe they just, as a good joke at the end. Yeah, no, he just gets into the final fight, and it's an insane fight between them. Boats are flying. Things, the punches are going, and again,
Oh,
Jake
I
Gyllenhaal
hated the
gets
camera
stabbed. He pulls it
shots.
out, and then just, I think I counted it. It was like 8 or 9 stabs, and then yeah, you
Oh
just see him
God.
die, and they're like, okay, insane final battle. Good guy won, no
Mhm.
problem. And then yes, after those credits, you just see him kind of walking out in that kind of strut that he does, and his ass hanging out like it has most of the movie. It's just like, is he still chasing Dalton? Like what is he doing? Like what is his plans? What is he gonna do? He's just leaving this hospital. I don't even know how he's walking. Get stabbed once one thing, but he was stabbed so many times. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It worked for Conor McGregor. He didn't have to be much of an actor. Just cool fight
No.
scenes or over the top fight scenes, and
Yeah.
yeah. But you kind of see the main villain, the son of the guy that's in the jail, and yes, he wants to buy the roadhouse, as it's just called in this movie, just the roadhouse, because he wants to build like some new country club area. And I'm like, there's so many fights happening in this city. How the
Yeah.
fuck is a country club going to survive? Unless there's
Yeah.
some like trick I was missing. I just didn't get what was the point of that. Go somewhere where it's a little bit more money. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it did that part better than the original one. The
Correct.
whole like second part of that like was much more smooth than the first one. I just didn't like how, again, Jake Gyllenhaal's character like didn't have any sort of experience as far as how to turn a bar around. I talked about Bar Rescue last time, which is what I felt like Patrick Swayze was. But that was, to me, a very sort of charming part about the original one. And then again, my least favorite part is it evolved. And in this one, it's actually the opposite. I wouldn't say that the violence part, the takeover part is like good, but it was done way better. Like the original one just I feel like it came out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden the violence was escalated, and all of a sudden there's a chase scene at the end with him and the main bad guy, and then he dies, and then the I think the police are like, well, that's it, or something like that. Like if I recall correctly, it was done very very poorly.
Oh, in the original, yeah. Like
Yeah.
everyone in the city kind of killed the main bad guy, and they're like, "Yeah, we didn't
Yes.
see anything." Blah blah blah. And in
That's
this
right.
one,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, this one kind of I was able to follow the plot a little bit more. You know what
Oh,
plot there was.
absolutely.
It just, but you know what I mean. You kind of know what's going on with the main bad guy. But then it's the corrupt cop of the love interest, blah blah, and he's just like, I mean, kind of like the simple. I got this. You were never here. You know, you knew he was going to clean
Oh,
up,
yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah,
Dalton
yeah.
just leaves in a bus,
Yep.
and I'm just like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, you know, he has a love interest. You know, again, you know, he's got a job and he's whatever. It might not be the best job. He gets into fights, but now that the main bad guy is out of the equation, maybe this job gets a little bit better. I don't know. I'm like, but again, a guy just leaves his love interest, just like, yep, see ya, and that's about it. But I do love. I have to laugh because one of the things we joked about in the original one, going back to Sam Elliott, is we're like, who were the workers that had to come into this mess, not of the fight, but to
Yeah.
see Sam Elliott's dead body? You know, just, so in this one, yes, there was a couple dead bodies, no major characters, but you see Frankie at the bar, like, okay, we this is okay, you know, we can clean this up, everything's good, you know. You see the after effects of all these workers
Yeah.
coming in, just like, all right, you know, this isn't bad, we can make this work. And then you see two kids, are you guys open? And I'm like, dude, do you not see a fucking boat through the wall? You know, they're having their own issues.
That's how
I
customers
do
are.
like I
It's
exactly.
realistic. It's very
I did like
realistic.
that little joke. Like, all right, you know what? We're open. Yes, we need money. So I like that. But overall,
Successful remake?
maybe, maybe. I mean, it was the
You
number one
think it
Amazon
did?
movie. I
You
mean,
think it
they
did
did.
shop? No, but in your opinion, you think this was a
So all
successful
right.
remake of an original movie?
So what is a successful remake? That you know, I
Do you think like it? Do you think it succeeded in doing the very basics of what a Roadhouse movie should
it
be in your
succeeded in
mind?
what it was trying to accomplish. You know, as like you did, I'm like, why did they need to make it? But they made it. They made it dated because if the original Roadhouse was made today, the Patrick Swayze way, that movie
Yes.
would fucking bomb. That movie would bomb big time in today's landscape. What do we need
Yes.
in today's world? Quick action scenes and mindless fights, Conor McGregor, and a love story that still doesn't make sense to me. Both love stories just come out of nowhere. It just seems
They really
forced.
did. They
Both
really
love
did.
interests are pointless. I mean, both actresses are fine in other things,
Oh yeah,
but both
absolutely.
actresses in this movie just did not fit in either or. And I was just like, why are they here? I will admit I do miss this. I wish they would have had a Sam Elliott character in this though.
Yeah,
I would have
that's my
loved to see her
takeaway
play
too.
that. I think that would have been a nice, you know, having that drama because that's the one thing about the
Some
original I did
bromance.
like. Well, not just that, but that scene where he had to figure out he didn't know if it was his best friend or his girlfriend who was getting killed, and I think just that kind of idea.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
if you
yeah,
remember,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, he went to protect his girlfriend, but it turned out it was his best friend. So that was a kind of a nice, you know, stake right there for him to deal with.
Yeah,
That which was not here. This was just
agreed.
like, oh my god, there's people who can
No.
beat the shit out of me. So, yeah,
Yeah, there was no stakes really in this one, except the
no,
ones that went inside of Conor McGregor. That was pretty much
eight
it.
or nine times, correct, correct.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, so, do you have any final comments for the new Roadhouse? Anything you want to make before we close
No.
the chapter? No more Roadhouse movies. I do not want to deal with any more
Oh,
Roadhouse.
Chad, until they make a sequel to this Roadhouse, you know what I mean? Like they
Well, they
left
made a
it a
sequel
little
to
bit
the
open.
original one that I really don't want to talk about.
Oh, they did. You're right. Okay, you know what? Let's just put a cap in that because
Just
that
close
can
the book.
open up a whole other can that I don't want to open up. But I agree with you. I think it's successful, if not boring remake. I mean, I think that a lot of, for me, just a lot of what was boring was its runtime and just again, just the shoehorned romance. Also, I think Jake Gyllenhaal's presence not really there with Patrick Swayze's, but
Yeah.
yeah, it did what it had to do. It's a watchable movie. I laughed a few different times. Um, but again, a lot more vanilla than the original one. And the original one, a lot of what makes it kind of funny is how ridiculously bad it is.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so overall, like I thought, thumbs up for me. I've definitely seen much worse movies. So
Yeah, same. So let us know in the comments what you thought of the new Roadhouse. Did you like it? You didn't like it? What are your opinions? Um, until next time, as Patrick Swayze said in the original, and they did not use that line. Well, they did in a cheesy fight scene, but just remember, people, be nice to each other.
be nice.